Now let's discuss individual service agreements and their requirements. Per California Ed Code Section 56366, the master contract shall include an individual services agreement for each pupil placed by a local education agency that will be negotiated for the length of time for which the non-public school or agency's special education and designated instruction and services are specified in the pupil's individualized education program. So, why do we use individual service agreements? ISAs are used in conjunction with master contracts to document the agreement between the LEA and the non-public school or agency regarding the special education and related services that will be provided for each student by the agency. I wanted to take a moment and highlight an important resource for you before we move on. It's important to note that the NPA or NPS designation indicates that the program has been approved by the California Department of Education to provide special education and related services. The CDE maintains a list of approved programs and agencies on their data collection and reporting webpage, which can be accessed via the link embedded in the PowerPoint. The list is updated and replaced on CDE's page roughly quarterly. It should always be accessed directly from the webpage by scrolling down to the Non-Public Schools and Agencies Certification Data Worksheet, as shown in the screenshot here. It's a good idea to re-download the file each time you need to access it. Now let's move on to what's required in an ISA. Per California Education Code 56366 and the CDE's guidance on non-public schools and agencies, the ISA must include, as specified in the student's IEP, the type of special education and services to be provided and the duration of those services. Additionally, master contracts and ISAs should be initiated prior to or at the start of the school year and should be finalized within 60 days. While the legal requirements for what must be included in an ISA are limited, there are several other best practice items to include in an ISA. Because the ISA is a legally binding contract between the LEA and the non-public school or agency, it's best practice to include demographic information for the LEA and NPS or NPA, the student demographic information, and other contract terms, including the number of days in the LEA's regular and extended school year, the rates for each service to be provided, the estimated yearly cost of such services, and fields to indicate approval of the contract by both the LEA and the non-public agency or school. Further, it's important for the ISA to mirror what is in the IEP. It should be a direct translation of the student's IEP when it comes to special education and related services. Service codes must match those listed on the Offer of FAPE services page. The frequency and duration must match exactly. For instance, if the IEP calls for speech and language services twice monthly, that is what should also be reflected on the ISA. Similarly, service minutes must match the session length as indicated in the IEP. Finally, only those services on the Offer of FAPE services page that will be provided by the non-public school or agency should be included in the ISA. Services that are not accounted for within the IEP should not be included in the ISA. Next, we'll dive into an introduction of and review the ISA form. To help ensure that ISAs meet procedural requirements and best practice standards, the SELPA provides an ISA template in Excel format, which is updated regularly and is based on the master contract template provided by the SELPA Administrators of California. You can find the file by clicking the link embedded in your PowerPoint. We'll touch on this later, but similar to the CDE Certification Data Worksheet for non-public schools and agencies, this form includes embedded information that can change from time to time. Therefore, it's best to re-download a fresh copy of the form before completing it. Let's start at the top of the form. Here, you'll add the demographic information for the LEA and non-public school or agency. The SELPA's ISA form connects with the CDE's non-public school and agency data certification worksheet, meaning you'll see the approval status once you select the NPS or NPA from the drop-down menu. As mentioned on the previous slide, this is why it's important to download a fresh copy of the form before using it. Next, you'll complete the student's demographic information. This should be pulled directly from the info and eligibility page of the student's IEP. Moving down, you'll scroll to the Agreement Terms section. Here, you'll reflect the service start and end date, which may align with the service start and end dates in the IEP or with the school year. You'll also add in the number of school days, weeks, and months for both the regular and extended school years. This may be pulled from your school's calendar. Next, you'll see an inclusive education program section. This section should only be used if the ISA is for a student placed at a non-public school or residential treatment center. This section captures only the educational portion of the services provided. Now you'll see the related services section of the ISA. This is where you'll capture the services to be provided by the NPS or NPA. This section should include the duration and frequency of the services, exactly as they are prescribed within the student's IEP. As mentioned before, the non-public school and agency certification status auto-populates within the form when the NPS or NPA is selected from the dropdown at the start of the form. Similarly, you'll see the certification status for each individual service within this section of the ISA. It's important to note that services for which the NPS or NPA are not certified should not be included on the ISA. After the services information is entered, the cost per session should be included. This information should be pulled from the rate sheet included in the master contracts you have with the non-public school or agency. Below the related services, you'll be able to add information and pricing for any specialized equipment or supplies that the non-public school or agency will provide in service of the student. Additionally, one of the great things about this form is that you'll see the estimated related services cost and total for services and supplies will auto-populate once services and supply costs have been added in the fields above. Following the cost calculations, you'll enter the date by which the master contract was approved by the LEA's governing board, if that's applicable to your LEA. This information can be found in the published agendas from your board meetings. Next, you'll enter the frequency by which the non-public school or agency must provide progress reporting. This should match the frequency listed on the educational setting page of the student's IEP. Lastly, as the ISA is a legally binding contract, signatures are not only prudent but required. Signatures should be provided by a representative of the non-public school or agency and the LEA. Next, I'll toss it to Katya to discuss practical tips for completing and updating ISAs.